So the Skorid fusion is over. Let's see if he's any good. Hello everyone, Bront CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and I am here on my alt. We have fused Skorid. I've actually fused him on both accounts, but I have actually built him and booked him on my alt, who needs some more help in Hydra, and we're going to see if he can be a viable Hydra damage dealer, as well as try him out in Arena just to see if I can use useful on a couple of champions teams, and maybe if you're just getting started in Arena, or if you're just looking for a team to do some quick farm, I've got a team built that should be fairly accessible that hopefully will help you with Arena. So let's take a look at him first of all. First of all, his kit. He's got an A1 that's got a 50% debuff spread, taking Hex and placing on all enemies, and if there is not a Hex, he'll spread another debuff instead. That books to a 60% chance. That's not too bad for keeping Hex up. It's it's okay for an A1. Hopefully it hits fairly hard. It's got an A2 that attacks one enemy before attacking, places a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns. Repeat the attack on all enemies under a Hex debuff. So he will hit once one enemy, and then he will hit everybody a second time if they're under Hex. So this is, again, much better for PvE, where you can make sure Hex is up there. It's obviously a bit of a problem in Arena, but we're going to try him in Arena anyway. He will ignore shields if targets are under the Hex debuffs. That's actually nice as well. It's a 4-turn, 3-turn cooldown with some damage on it. Not too bad. Hopefully it hits fairly hard. And again, the 1 hit followed by a many hit could be very good. Finally, he's got an attacks all enemies before attacking places a Hex, which means he cannot weak hit with this, and he might be able to get through things like the Poison Cloud or other things like that. Places the Hex first. Damage inflicted with this skill is increased by 20% for each Hex debuff placed, so he can get up to 100% additional damage. Generally, it's going to be about 80 because he's going to be placing 4 Hexes either in Arena or in Hydra. Heals this champion by 20% of their max HP for each Hex debuff resisted or blocked. So if he's getting resisted or blocked, he's healing, which is not too bad. Otherwise, he's nuking, not too bad. Finally, he does have a passive, fills his turn meter by 10% when attacking targets without Hex, so he pushes his turn meter back to get Hex back up, and if he attacks target with Hex, he ignores 15% of their defense. So how have I built him? Let's go take a look. All right, so I have him in Instinct gear, but for Instinct gear, you certainly could have just used Savage. I happen to have some good Instinct gear laying around that fit him very well, so I use the Instinct gear. Savage would be just fine. In fact, it might be a little bit better, except for I was struggling to get some of the speeds I wanted to. I also have put him in speed boots. Normally, especially for an AoE nuker, I would recommend trying to get him into attack boots because he's an attack-based champion. However, I did not want him to be below 180 speed. I really don't want him to be below 200 speed. So the speed boots just became a necessity. Fortunately, I actually have these really nice merciless boots. I've got this nice chest right here. It's attack percent chest, crit damage on the gloves. Top parts are just crit rate, crit damage, getting him to 100% crit rate. Nothing special down here. I do have an accuracy banner because we want enough accuracy to land the Hex. If he doesn't have enough accuracy, that's fine. You can actually build him as a pure nuker, but I wanted a little bit of a hybrid mix. And again, we're talking about a Hydra build, which means I want him to go fast. I want him to hit fairly hard, but I'd like him to take several turns, and I'd like him to do his debuffs. So from that end, he needed the accuracy. You could probably build him without accuracy. It probably would actually do pretty well overall. Crit damage there. Overall, here are his stats. If I put him in Hydra, they're going to be a little bit better because I do have Hydra bonuses. So, but overall, we're talking 220-ish speed, talking about 280-ish crit damage. Accuracy is around 300, which will get fine up all the way up till brutal, which is good. 5,200 attack is actually pretty decent. I'd prefer to get closer to the 6,000 if I had the attack percent boots, but we'll see how much damage he does. So he, again, I have him booked, except for I did not book all of his A1 here. I would eventually like to book this A1, but this was not the most important part of his kit. I wanted the cooldowns, and I wanted the additional damage on these, and I got them. So that's great, and this is probably good enough for most people. So if you can save a couple of books here, you could save as many as 4 legendary books. That's not too bad. So let's go take a look at what I've got for Arena and throw them in an Arena team and see how it works. So I thought about a couple different teams here, and the one I initially thought about was to take this team I've got right here, where I've got a Candy and a Up Supreme Elhain, and swap him in for the Candy. I think he'd pair fairly well with Duchess, who will put the Veils up and give him increased attack as well, so he'll be able to do some additional damage, and Pythion just gives him additional tankability, plus Supreme Elhain hits for some extra damage as well. But I decided this was a little bit of a stretch for a team, so instead we're going to go with something a little more accessible here. So we've got this team right here, which has got Arbiter in the lead. We've got Deacon right afterwards. Mine happens to be a +4, but he's not built specifically for Arena, so these stats should be pretty reasonable for most people. Skorid, we got him built here. Again, we showed you the stats earlier. And then Ultimate Death Knight, so that should help prevent me from getting one shot by just about anybody. Give me a little bit of extra tank ability, and then if Arbiter can survive to revive people if somebody dies. Otherwise, I've got some turn meter control and some decreased defense, which I think Skorid is going to need. So let's go take him in on this team here. Not particularly exciting, but this should be pretty self-explanatory. So, all right. So Arbiter does her A1. Get the turn meters drop and get your decreased defense out there. And we want to get the Hex out because that's his only AoE and see how much damage that does. Hey, that cleared the entire team. It was not a particularly difficult team, but that was a lot of damage. I should slow that down to see how much more damage we can do. All right, so we got somebody tankier right here. This could be kind of tough. I suspect there's some stone skin involved here, but we're kind of looking to see how hard he hits. So this will actually be a good indication of this. He is bad affinity for this, so this is probably not the best matchup for him either, but you know what? We'll give it a try and see how we go. All right, the increased speed. Deacon does his thing. There's the decreased defense. All right. It did not hit for a lot of damage, but again, we're getting weak hits. All right, so let's see if we can get some decreased defense here. There we go. Increase, get you up, increase the speed. Nocturnamus down would be great. Not going to happen, and I think we're dead. All right, so it looks like he is not really doing great in Arena. To be fair, I'm pretty high up in Arena in Gold 5. I think this build would be okay more in a Gold 4 or even a progression build. So don't take this as an absolute. He is not fit for Arena at all. I just don't think I can find a team that he's particularly well suited for against here, how I've got him built. Probably better for Arena. I would build him with attack boots. But, you know, maybe he's not a particularly great Arena champion. But if that's what you've got, he's okay. He does some damage. You saw how he managed to clear the one team earlier on that was definitely a lower power team. And so let's hop into Hydra. I'll fast forward through this. All right, so we're here on Hydra on Brutal, and this is the team we're going to try. This is my brand new Necmo Thar. He is built in Provoke set. I believe he actually has 4-piece protection as well, because I actually happen to have 3 protection accessories that fit him very nicely. He doesn't need to be there. That was mostly for the extra speed. The 4th one was because I could. We're going to focus him on his speed wording, which is the extra turn, increase speed, and then put decreased speed leech out there when he can. That'll bring a bunch of extra healing. And then he actually does a decent amount of damage hitting with this, and he's got cruelty as well, so he'll work on decreasing the defense of everybody as he hits. We got Skorid right here. We're going to focus on him getting Hex out first, just because his ignore defense under Hex is very, very powerful. We're going with Ugo here. Ugo's, you know, queen of Hydra in some cases. You've got decreased defense on block buffs, and then you've got cleanse. We're probably going to manual this, but I'm saying these things. But Ugo generally knows what to do when, so every once in a while Ugo will cleanse when they need to. Generally, they're going to do this most of the time. Michinaki, if you don't set him to do this, he will not hex as a primary. He will do this decreased defense. However, with Skorid here as well, I think Skorid is going to get the hex out as well. So we're going to let him land the hex a little more often than Michinaki, but we're going to get hex out there, and Michinaki works well with the hex champion, which is also great. Wixwell will bring his A1 Provoke. We'll bring some shields to help keep us alive. We'll bring the Intercept to help deal with some of the fears. And then finally, we're going to deal with Shamail, who will keep most of the fears off of everyone and does a decent amount of damage as well. So let's give this a try. We do not have a Reviver, but we've got a couple of healers and some shieldage, so this should be pretty good. We're going to run this around. First of all, we'll keep this. Let's make sure this is not on auto. So we'll start this off, and I just kind of want to see how much damage Skorid is going to do on his A3. And we're going to provoke if we can. Oh, we got a provoke out there already. Perfect. So we got a shield out. Get that decreased defense out there. Michinaki can do that as well. Skorid gets his hex out. And let's see this. So 65 to 95,000 each. Not bad. I mean, that was a good 400 whatever hit. He is due to ignore a bunch of defense, which should be very, very helpful. And he hit on almost 1 million just doing that. Plus now we have hex out, which is great. So let's get to his A2 and see how that does. Now it's nice that we have Shamail hitting here. And it's nice. Wixwell is actually really nice with this counterattack because he's built as a tank for the Mischief, and Mischief will occasionally attack him and he'll counterattack, and if there's not hex out, he'll sometimes get his provoke up on the other boss as well, which is great. Cleanse that there. Get some more hex out. Doesn't hurt. Got provoke out. That's awesome. So Wixwell can do other things. Wixwell can extend. All right, so let's see how this hits. First hit, that was actually nice. First hit was 150, and the other hits were all for 50 to 100k. Lots of damage here. This is actually looking pretty good. So let's go run through this, and I will be back when this run is done, and we'll take a look and see how much damage everyone does. Now, keep in mind, on this account, I do struggle to one-key Brutal. I'm very, very close to doing it. Sometimes I do it fine, sometimes I don't. I probably could do it better if I didn't full auto, and I'm obvious I'm not going to be full autoing with this team. But with this account, one-keying Brutal is generally a good accomplishment. So if I can one-key Brutal with Skorid, that's actually given me something my team didn't have before, which means he was a worthwhile fusion to go for. So we'll be back. All right, so you can see the Elva build here. She is in 6-piece protection, so she should get a lot of her buffs protected. She'll bring the block debuffs, which can be very good. She'll bring a cleanse, which can be great as well. She brings passive healing every time somebody takes a turn, which is great. And then, of course, she'll bring a revive, and she brings occasional veils as well. So you don't necessarily need to pair her with a Shamail, although it certainly helps. But with a Shamail, she will certainly neuter Shamail a little bit because you'll have veils out there on occasion because of her passive, which is this one right here, which is a perfect bake on one channel with the lowest HP at the end of this champion's turn, and she heals everybody by 10% at the start of their turn. So this is a very Siphi-esque passive, except for with the perfect veil, which makes it actually a little bit better. Elva is a great champ, good for all kinds of stuff. Again, I've got her 6-piece protection. She's more built for kind of arena, but it works really well here in Hydra as well. So let's go run this and see how it works. Alrighty, so we're gonna try this again from the drawing board because apparently everybody in that team is just a little too squishy to do that on Brutal, and that happens. I'm just not quite ready with that team, so I'm going to go back to a different team and see what we can do. So we're going to here on my hard team, and I'm going to swap Skorid in here for my Newt, and actually see if I can move my Newt up to my Brutal team, which I think will actually help, because if you've watched my max HP video, which I'll link up here in the above, you can see that Newt should do a little bit better against Brutal than he currently was doing against Hard. So On this particular team here, I don't have anybody that's actually getting Hex out there. I've got Vizix and Relentless to get the single combat out, and in fact, I should make sure that's their highest priority. Razelvarg just does Razelvarg stuff. He does a lot of damage, brings a lot of extra speed. He's great as well. We still have a Shamail here to make sure we got everybody protected from fear. Elva should help keep everyone alive, as should Ugo. And Skorid is there to bring some damage and some hex along with Razelvarg. So we'll try this on hard. And if he's a better hard champion, but that frees up another champion for me to move up to brutal, that's great as well. So we'll give this a try and see how that works. And again, some of it's just a gear issue. He's a little squishy. I'd prefer him to have more than 40k HP and probably another 300 to 500 more defense. But I don't want to take away too much attack because he's supposed to be a damage dealer. So let's give it a try. All right, so that other team was not working particularly well because I did not have a decrease attack, so I was actually still getting killed. So we're going to try this here. So we're going to move Nekmothar down to my hard team, pair him with Skorid. We've got an Ugo here. This is a different Ugo. I don't think she's in Relentless. Get my Elva here for some sort of healing. Razelvarg for additional speed tuning and additional canceling of Leech, so that should be good. And then Shamail to help with the fears as well. So this should be a decent team on hard, so let's give it a try. So it looks like with a little bit of work and accidentally apparently running this on brutal as opposed to hard, well, hey, we ended up with 45 million damage, which is a really good Hydra clash, and actually I believe my personal best on this account. Skorid did about a third of that, well, you know, somewhere about 40% maybe, with the 18 million. To be fair, that 18 million probably is a good 5 or 6 million of that is probably hex damage from Razelvarg and other stuff as well. But that tells you how important hex can be. He was smacking pretty hard. He healed himself a little bit. Ugo and Elva kept him alive mostly. I did have to revive him a few times or revive another champion every once in a while. It ended in sudden death where a bunch of people got knocked out, and it happens. But Razelvarg definitely did some decent damage. Nekmothar brought some good damage, but he basically solo provoked for this entire turn. And hey, we managed to actually get a brutal team run. So is Skorid somebody that I would recommend using in Hydra? I think he can be a good normal or hard or maybe even a brutal damage dealer. You're just going to have to make sure you have enough support to keep him alive. And, you know, it's going to depend on your gear and your other champions you have around him as well. He brings the Hex, which is great. He brings the debuff spread, which can be good. I found several times the debuff spread was very helpful in getting debuffs underneath the poison cloud if I couldn't get the poison cloud up. And it was definitely nice to get Hex, and it helped me get Hex on the Mischief Head when the Mischief Head did not have Hex on it as well. I would like to book that up just a little bit to get that to the 60%. But overall, you know, I think he's a decent champion. He's certainly not a top tier champion. He's certainly not a meta champion. But if you did the fusion, well, congratulations. I think you've got a decent Hydra damage dealer. So until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.